Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to break down how to write a perfect process essay. And trust me, it's a lot simpler than it sounds. By the time we're done here, you'll have a super clear blueprint for success. So think about it. Do you know how to bake a cake? Or maybe how to plant a tree? If you can explain something like that, something you already know how to do, well, you've already got the basic idea behind a process essay. You're just putting a step-by-step guide into words. Okay, so what's the official definition? A process essay does one of two things. It either explains how to do something, or it explains how something works. The main goal, always, is to guide your reader through a series of steps, clearly and logically. You can just think of it as a classic how-to guide, but, in essay form. So let's really dig in. What exactly is a process essay? In this first part, we're going to get a closer look at the definition and the two main ways this kind of writing shows up. You'll find that process essays really come in two main flavors. First, you've got the directional kind. This is your how-to guide that gives the reader direct instructions they can follow, like a recipe for how to prep for a big exam. The second kind is informational, which explains how it works. Think of an essay explaining photosynthesis. The big difference? It's whether your reader is supposed to be a participant or just an observer. Now, here's the good news. It doesn't matter if you're writing a how-to or a how-it-works essay, because the foundation is exactly the same. So let's look at this simple three-part structure that's going to be the blueprint for your entire piece. And here it is, that blueprint. It's the classic structure you already know: an intro, the body, and a conclusion. You're going to start by introducing the process and telling us why it matters. Then, you'll use the body paragraphs to explain all the steps in order. And finally, you'll wrap it all up with a conclusion that summarizes the whole thing. If you stick to this, your reader will never, ever get lost. Okay, so we've got the blueprint. Now let's get our hands dirty. How do you actually write each part? We're going to walk through the entire writing process, step by step, starting with how to build a really strong introduction. A great intro really has 4 jobs to do. First, you gotta hook the reader, grab their attention right away. Then, give them any background info they might need. After that, clearly state the purpose of the process. What's the end goal here? And last but not least, include a super clear thesis statement that tells the reader exactly what you're about to explain. Now, the body of the essay. This is where the magic happens. The number one, most important, absolute golden rule here is to explain the steps in chronological order. I mean, you can't frost a cake before you bake it, right? To keep things neat and tidy, try to give each major step its own paragraph. And make sure your language is as clear and specific as you can possibly get. And to make sure all those steps connect smoothly, you're going to want to use transition words. Words like first, next, and finally are like little signposts for your reader, guiding them from one stage to the next. Seriously, they're the glue that turns a simple list of steps into a coherent, easy-to-follow guide. Okay, this is a big one. You have to write for a total beginner. Put yourself in their shoes. Something that seems totally obvious to you might be a complete mystery to your reader. So assume they know nothing. Spell out every single step, no matter how tiny it seems. You want to leave absolutely no room for confusion. All right, let's wrap this thing up with the conclusion. Now, you're not introducing any new information here. Nope. Instead, you're just briefly summarizing the main steps, reminding the reader why this whole process is important, and maybe offering a final thought on the result. It's all about giving your reader a satisfying sense of, okay, we're done. Okay, so you've written a draft. Awesome. But before you call it a day, let's do a quick quality check. We're going to run through a few common mistakes that can really trip people up. The number one error, without a doubt, is getting the sequence wrong. If the steps are out of order, the whole explanation just falls apart. Your reader will get confused, the process won't work. It's a disaster. So always, always double-check your chronology. You've got to be precise. Vague words are your enemy because they just create confusion. So instead of saying, gather the things you need, you should say, gather the flour, sugar, and eggs. Clarity is everything. Remember that glue we talked about? Yeah, don't forget to use it. Without transition words, your essay is just going to read like a choppy, disconnected list instead of a smooth guide. They are absolutely essential for creating that logical flow. And please, don't just stop after the final step. An essay that just ends feels unfinished, right? A proper conclusion is like the period at the end of the sentence. It signals to the reader that the process is complete and ties everything together nicely. So, when you're proofreading, just keep these 2 words in your mind: clarity and flow. If someone can read your essay, understand your instructions, and follow them from start to finish without getting confused, then congratulations. You've written a successful process essay. Theory is great and all, but let's see how this stuff actually works in practice. We'll use a super simple, everyday task, making a cup of tea, to see how all these rules come together to create a perfect little mini essay. See? You can see all the elements right here. The introduction sets the stage perfectly. The steps are in a clear, logical order, all linked up by those transition words: first, next, finally. And then the conclusion gives us a nice, satisfying summary. This simple example just goes to show how effective this structure is, even for the most basic task. So, the ball's in your court now. You've got the blueprint to take pretty much any complex process and break it down into clear, simple steps that anyone can follow. So the only real question is, what are you going to explain first?